Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining us for this Steinway Sons online webinar masterclass with Steinway artist Garrick Ohlsson and Kathy Chin. This masterclass is presented in collaboration with the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. We here at Steinway Sons recognize the difficult challenges faced in the wake of the coronavirus. To better serve our customers, we're offering online purchasing from the convenience of your home of the Steinway Sons Spirio and the Spirio Record, the world's finest high-resolution player pianos, as well as our Boston and Essex grand and upright pianos. We know it's a time of great uncertainty, but at Steinway Sons, we believe in the power of music to teach, grow, relieve stress, express, and heal. For more information on purchasing a Steinway Sons Spirio or Spirio R, visit steinway.com/shop/Spirio. For more information on purchasing a Boston or Essex piano online, visit bostonpianos.com. On behalf of Steinway Sons, allow me to introduce myself and our teacher and our student. I'm your host, Ben Finan, editor-in-chief at Steinway Sons. My purview includes the Steinway Owners Magazine, a print magazine, Steinway.com, as well as the award-winning online music magazine, listenmusicculture.com. I'm also the producer and host of Soundboard, the official Steinway Sons podcast on artistry and craftsmanship, releasing new episodes weekly. Find it at steinway.com/soundboard or wherever you pod your casts. Since his triumph as winner of the 1970 Chopin International Piano Competitions, Steinway artist Garrick Ohlsson has established himself worldwide as a musician of magisterial, interpretive, and technical prowess. Though long regarded as one of the world's leading exponents on the music of Chopin, Ohlsson commands an enormous repertoire, which ranges over the entire piano literature. A student of the late Claudio Arrau, Ohlsson has come to be noted for his masterly performances of the works of Mozart, Beethoven, and Schubert, as well as the Romantic repertoire. He was awarded the Avery Fisher Prize in 1994 and received the 1998 University Musical Society Distinguished Artist Award in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He is also the 2014 recipient of the Jean Gimbel Lane Prize in piano performance from the Northwestern University Bienen School of Music. Mr. Ohlsson is currently on the piano faculty at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. Kathy Chin is 12 years old and started piano with her mother at age 5. She has studied with Dr. Qin Chuan at Shandong University in China and with Professor Matti Rakelio, forgive me if I haven't pronounced that correctly, at Juilliard School Pre-College. She received first place prizes at Qingdao Golden Sunflower Piano Competition, North China Steinway Piano Competition, and top prizes at Kasselberg, Shanghai International, and Stanborg International. Today, she'll be performing Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, Opus 23, number 5. If you would like to submit a question during this masterclass, you may do so through Zoom. We will, of course, not get to all of them, but we'll answer what we can. Thank you so much.
Hello, okay. Hello, everybody. Kathy, you had to sit there and wait and not warm up. Do you want to play a few notes just before you start, or are you ready to go?
Oh, I'm ready to go.
Excellent.
You are muted right now.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow, spectacular. I wish you had a room full of people to applaud you. That's great. I'm really, really, really impressed.
Thank you.
And I don't think that you need me particularly. I think your teacher is doing a magnificent job, and I think you're doing a magnificent job. Really, really wonderful, wonderful. Now, of course, because we're remote and because the sound is unfortunately far from ideal, it's not sort of state-of-the-art, beautiful speaker sound. Some of the things I tell you may actually not be quite true, because I'm just trying to fill in the blanks and guess a little bit. Marvelous. You have the grasp of this piece. First of all, you can play it, which is remarkable. I mean, it's a hard piece for anybody. You have the strength, you have the range, you have all of the ability. I can only, you're at such a high level already. All I want to do is recommend quite a few small things just to lift the level a little bit. Number one, and I have no way of judging this because of the sound issue, and I don't want to talk about that too much, but it's there. Be very careful in the gradations of sound as you go in crescendos. I don't think you're forcing. I can't really tell. I don't believe so. And I'll discuss with you what's forcing, but pick out maybe with me, let's see, what is some of the loudest music in this whole piece? I had a good spot. Probably, for example, the fortissimo on the last page. Oh, sorry, I know there's probably a shock of sound. I hope that's all right. So play those just 2 bars for me and give it the most sound you can. Now, I don't mean I mean as loud as you can play, but not louder than the piano can play. Because, Kathy, this is a general principle, and for everybody, no matter, I'm very big and very strong, and you're actually very strong, and you're not nearly as big as me, so strength has nothing to do with your size. A piano can you can't do more than that. No matter how strong you are, how big you are, whether you use technique from the finger, the arm, the wrist, the elbows, the ceiling, it can only go so far. So find for those 2 bars, play those 2 bars a couple of times, and really listen to the big sound of the piano. Make sure it really vibrates and rings, which I believe you already do. Just those 2 bars. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I jump all over the place when I comment, and you're so good I can jump all over the place. Number 1, just play the bottom line. I just want to hear that as a tune, as a melody. Yeah. Now, let's talk about making a big sound. The biggest sound in a piano comes from the bass. But it's very round. It's not so sharp. Up here at the top, it's very sharp, and it's like a piccolo. It screams. So you want to make sure that your pinky down there is very strong. Let's just hear that. Yeah. Yeah, rebound off of it. So in other words, don't hurt your pinky by smashing it down, but the pedal will hold it like a gong. Yeah. Just let it out. Yeah. Now the octave. And now all 3. Yeah. Easier, right? Yeah. In other words, you can be strong the way a singer has to be, an opera singer. Ha. Not ah. Ha. And when you have it's fortissimo, you have the pedal, you have to have the pedal here. It's kind of easy. Now give me just these 2 bars like this. Okay? As if you're playing the whole piece with real character. Bum, ba ba bum, Yeah, but play 2 bars of that. Yeah. Now, I don't know. Try this. From my taste, the 16th notes are a little too short. They're clipped. It's musical. It's not wrong. It's a question of your taste. Ba ba da dum. Because I think it's always good to think what's the character of the piece in general and the character specifically. So I think we don't want those smaller notes to sound just like grace notes or upbeat. I'll show you by exaggeration what I think you don't want. Right? Because that's not the piece. The piece is not. Right? It's dum, bum, bum, bum. It's kind of a more military piece. Da, ba da dum. So those 2 notes need to be sung too. So let's hear that. Dum, ba da dum. Yeah. Okay. Now the next thing, that's good, and you are strong enough, by the way. I just want you to be as free as possible. Now we're going to play a little game. A lot of this piece is written, almost all of it, as if there are 2 pianos playing. It sounds a little bit like 2 pianos. So now let's look at the top. As a matter of fact, let's play a duet. This will be maybe not possible. I'm going to play the upper lines, and you just play those that you just played, da, ba da dum, and I'm going to play the upper ones. Now the timing may not work because of Zoom, but let's see what happens. Yeah. Anyway, that's if we were live together, we could have more fun with that with 2 pianos. In other words, you have to sound like 2 pianists, right? You're 2 different people. One goes ba ba da dum, ba ba da dum, and the other one responds maybe more hysterically, or oh my gosh, like ba. You know, in other words, this is the mean authority at the bottom, right? Ba ba da dum, and the other one's going ba da dum, da 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 da. Ooh, it's very excited. So those can actually rush a bit. So I'll show you in slow motion. In feeling. Now, when you're actually playing the piece, don't rush. But you still want that feeling. You want dum, dum, dum. In other words, the bottom one should be really solid and threatening even, and the upper ones should respond. That's a lot to think of. Give it a try. Try those 2 bars a couple of times. Experiment. Have fun. Excellent. Yeah, and you play so well, and your instincts are so good. You're experimenting around right now. This is not about how to make it perfect. This is about how to get all the feeling into it, and then later you can get it more organized. So when you practice this piece, of course, it's going to be a nuisance because it takes a lot longer to do it this way. Just practice those things separately and wait in between them. So in other words, play that. Get your hands up here safely, yeah. And then play them the way you want to. So part of the difficulty of this piece is all the jumping, right? You know, jump, 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 jump. There's a lot of opportunities to miss. And we've all missed plenty, believe me. And you do. So make it easy for yourself. When you practice, first slowly. So you have plenty of time to think about what you want to do. And then later, you have to move the speed up, but you also have to practice the difference in characters. So maybe make the top one faster, just for practice. Now that's ridiculous rubato. Nobody would ever want to hear that. But that's kind of the character, you know? Just like, you know, apples aren't oranges, and, You know, a steak isn't a fish, and it's just, so now, I don't want to make this worse than it is, but you can look at the whole piece that way, as a duet with yourself. Let's start at the beginning. So, let's just have that, okay? Dum, bum, bum, bum. Yeah. Now you're not quite in the right octave. Okay.
Yeah, that's so.
Okay, no, that's fine. Don't worry about it. It does, you know, I'm pulling it apart now. You know, there's a famous joke. You know what a millipede is? It's this insect that has this worm that crawls that has a lot of legs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you know, some other creature says to it, "How do you know which leg to move next?" And then the millipede can't move anymore because it never had to think about it. It just did it. So the reason I want to pull this apart a little bit is so that you get really the character of each thing, and then later we'll put the whole thing together in the whole stew, okay? So just let's just 2 bars is enough. Good. And even more now with real exaggerated character, I think it should be quite strict in time, right? Bum, 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 bum. Feel that excitement inside of you. And that means especially the eighth of bum, bum, bum. Not at all casual, okay? Yeah, exactly. And then, now in the second bar, he already writes a variation. Bum bum becomes da-da-dum, so he growls a little bit already. So that could be a little bit threatening too. Yeah, good. And it's so funny, the difference is so slight, but I can really feel that you have that rhythm excitement inside of you now. Yeah, so that's good. Now, okay, so I think you already see the point. You can work at the whole thing this way. It'll take a while, but it's tremendous. Then, the last element of the whole thing are all these jumps, right? Because this piece is jumping all the time. You jump practically every quarter note, and sometimes more often. There you're jumping, it's not so far, but you of course have to practice those jumps like choreography, like dancers. When a dancer runs along the stage and takes a leap, they have to not only plan how to get up in the air, but when they land, they have to plan where they're going afterwards. So, for example, once again, let's look at the top of page 2. Right? Just in your left hand, give me, just play that chord. Really strong. Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's only forte. So forte means strong. It doesn't mean necessarily too much. You have to save up for the fortissimo. That's one of the other things I wanted to tell you. That's why find out the most you can give. And make sure that this it's not the same. Because there's a little bit of singing in it. It's not it's da-da-da-da-dum. It actually has to have a little bit of lyricism in it. A lot of elements in these pieces, right? So let's just have a nice forte. I encourage you to play too loud, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Now, the moment you come off it, get your hand over where you're going next, which is there. Yeah. Maybe actually, when you move off the key, just move toward the next one rather than, it's okay to come up in the air, but maybe don't spend too much time there. Just, rather than coming up and then coming back down, just go over there. Yeah, okay. We've got half a beat. That's great. Now, Let's get to that one. So you come off. Yeah. So when you come off this one, you're just on the way down. You're doing this anyway. I just want to increase. It's natural. You know, rather than, oh, where am I going? So everything, it's like walking. Everything just tumbles forward. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, good. And then, of course, you're going to have to practice. Right. Right. And like I said, these 16th notes have to be da-da-da-da-da, have to be rhythmic, but they also have to be not like machine gun bullets. They're not da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-dum. So let's hear nice singing. Right. Again? Sorry. Okay. I'm hearing a little bit of pause. Da-da-da-da-dum. It's hard.
In the chords, they have an accent. So
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the accent, you're right. The accent comes, also show you in slow motion when you sing. Da-da-da-da-dum. So an accent can sometimes be a vertical accent with a pause, but it can be sometimes a result of the growth. I think that's what I prefer, but that's only a question of taste. But I think if you sang it, you wouldn't sing dum ba-da-dum ba-da-dum bum da-da-da-da bum ba-da-dum ba-da-dum da-da-da-da-dum and you'll still get the accent. So as a matter of fact, let's just try E flat to the chord. Just try that with the accent. Yeah, the accent is a result of the motion of the E flat to the next chord. Yeah. Yeah. So it has. Now, you may not agree with that, and your teacher may not agree with that. That's okay. It's just another way to look at it, okay? Yeah. It's not a question of right or wrong. But my feeling is yum, ba-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. You're a nice, powerful singer. Da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. And so on. So think about that, okay? You don't have to do it at all. Da-da-da-da-dum. But if you want to, that's fine. But still, remember, that's another way of connecting. So, and now let's hear the right hand here. That's rather harder. Good. Good. Once more. A couple of times. Okay. Kathy? Excellent. Excellent. Now, just take it 1 degree easier, because you have, by that I mean dynamically, you're strong enough there. I don't want you to strain yourself. Also, there are other things. You know, a piano score like this Rachmaninoff is like an orchestral score, right?
Yes.
It's not just notes after notes after notes. There's different instruments that have different colors, characters that sing at different times in different ways. So here, you've got tripling. You've got the octaves, right? And the moment you have an octave above, it's like it's the same note. But you put the two of them together and you get more than twice. They reinforce each other. And when you have 3, it's naturally powerful.
Yes.
So it doesn't need too much. Okay? Yeah. Good. That's plenty. That's absolutely plenty. But the next thing to practice is to get down to the next. So in slow motion, watch my hands if you can. The left hand is in place, but the right hand has to travel down to meet the left hand. Da da da, and do it slow. Kathy, not just the two notes. I like. How about? Yeah, yeah. And the last thing to do, and I can't tell because you're not in the room with me. Now this is a completely different exercise. Play just this, and while you're doing it, breathe out. Take a breath in. You'll discover it gets easier. Yeah, do it. Try it again. Take a big breath in, and then out. Does that? Now that's to play with too, and when you're playing in a concert, don't worry about that. But it's just a way of taking a little tension out of it. It's just like when you're doing a stretching exercise. If you breathe, everything gets. It doesn't make it easy, but it makes it a little easier. So now you can't just breathe out through the whole piece, obviously. But I was just trying to show you how to get effective strength and speed and still make it a little more comfortable. Because, you know, when you see if you see a really good pianist, usually like you, usually the comment is, wow, she makes it look so easy. Well, you do, but you can even make it look easier and be easier for you. Okay? Good. Now, I'd like to jump entirely to something else, because time has a way of flying. Let's go to the middle section, okay? How about just play for me just about half of it, please. Beautiful, just beautiful. Isn't it interesting how in this middle section, which is so contrasting, Rachmaninoff is still thinking of an extra pianist or an extra hand at least. As like somebody else. And then of course, as you know and brought out very well, then you get a three-hand effect with the next statement of the theme. Excellent. What is your fingering for just the first arpeggio? Can you show me slowly?
Yeah, so first I have an octave, and then I put my pinky, the thirds, second, first.
Good.
And then there's seconds, first, seconds, fourth, first,
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Play it for me, a sort of medium tempo, just the left hand, just those first notes. I can't do it myself. Yeah, make sure that all the connections are smooth, especially when you have to pass the thumb under and over. Just work on that a little bit. And remember that this is all going to be under a haze of pedal, right? So the touch has to be extremely fine. I cheated, I used two hands. But I'm not sure what fingering I used to use. But make sure that when you practice put the pedal now down and play very softly each note. To make sure that every single note is even under the haze of the pedal. That's a whole different kind of touch. Beautiful, beautiful. It's beautiful, isn't it? Just this cloud is like flowers on a tree in the spring or something. It's just beautiful. Make sure, but it's also a good exercise to be able to do that really smoothly with and without pedal, and you'll notice your touch has to change a little bit. It's funny how, we sometimes say that playing with pedal is a way somehow of making a fake legato, or you should make the legato with your fingers or something. Well, sure you should, but you should also be able to do it with a pedal, because the moment you put the pedal down, it changes the nature of the sound, and we react differently to it. You know, it's very funny if somebody plays an arpeggio in the Emperor Concerto. Sometimes they can get it really good with no pedal, and then you put the pedal down and everything feels different because of the sound, and you have a different reaction. So that's good. So really play them, and make sure you can do that maybe at a medium tempo, almost like a solo, you know. And the same thing when you have a Chopin nocturne. You know, you're playing the nocturne in D flat. Practice it as a solo. You know, I always like to say when Yo-Yo Ma plays a solo Bach piece, or any great cellist, it's all beautiful. You know, it's not just, sometimes pianists' left hands are not so, you know, not so good. Yours is excellent. So work on that. Now, in the phrasing of the melody, you did beautifully. You did something very natural. You actually let us feel that beautiful change of harmony. Now, the funny thing about Rachmaninoff is that when he writes melodies, he writes a lot of these dashes. Up, you know. And there's a lot of dispute as to what that means, because in a lot of music, those are often marks to sustain, especially in string music. Ba, ba. Well, we can't do that, not up here on the piano. There's not much sustaining. It's just, those are the kind of notes he wants to emphasize, but what's interesting is how he doesn't emphasize the next. So in other words, it's not, it's, so in fact, he's letting this beautiful harmony be like a false resolution, but then he says, I'm not finished yet. Now, that's a question of taste, and I can't speak for Rachmaninoff at all, but you know, a great composer and artist like that might not always do things exactly the same way, you know, because I've known many composers, really good ones. Oh yeah, well, I wasn't sure. I phrased it that way that time. I wasn't sure which one I liked better. So, you know, you do what you like, and what, you know, and you talk about your teacher to it, but it's always very good to watch what he says. Try to figure out what that means. It's just another way of looking at the picture, right? It's just a slightly different thing.
Garrick, thank you very much.
Back. May I say one more word to Kathy?
Please,
Kathy,
absolutely.
You were just wonderful. I don't want you to get a swelled head. I don't think you will. To play so well, you have to work far too hard and have far too much self-possession. I'm very, very impressed and very happy to meet you, and I look forward to hearing you in the future. I can expect some really good things from you, I'm sure.
Me too, thank you.
You're most welcome. Be well.
Kathy, thank you so much for your performance. And Garrick, thank you so much for leading this masterclass. You said something earlier. It's not about how to make it perfect, but how to get all the feeling in it. And I really appreciate that you said this, because it speaks to why we all love masterclasses, even if we can't play at a masterclass level.
Oh,
and that is because for me, it illuminates the need for the pianist to make decisions. What am I bringing out? Where's the arc? How is what I'm doing in the moment contributing to my larger interpretation? What is that interpretation? Is that interpretation defended by what the composer wrote in the score? And we've learned a lot today about what some of those decisions are. So I guess I want to back out a little and ask, when you sit down with a piece by Rachmaninoff, any piece, are there certain musical priorities or angles that you have to address over others just given that Rachmaninoff is Rachmaninoff?
Gosh. Well, basically, now this is going to be quite general. A crescendo by Rachmaninoff or Mozart is a crescendo. You have to figure out where it's coming from, where it's going, what's it doing. In other words, the elements specifically of Rachmaninoff style or Mozart style, I think that comes later. First you plant the seed, then the plant grows and has roots and has a stem, and and eventually it produces apples or oranges. That's kind of the style or the hairdo. So the principles are the same. However, obviously there are great stylistic differences. I think the most important thing is just to try. It's quite elementary. Learn the notes, learn their rhythmic order, try to figure out what's going on where. When I say analysis, I don't mean necessarily here's a 1 chord and here's a 5 chord, although that might be useful for some people. By the time you're at Kathy's level, you're actually past needing to think that, oh, the E flat is the flat 6 of G minor, therefore, what do you do with the flat 6 anyway? You don't do anything with it. It depends on how it comes in context. So analysis is important, but analysis of what the composer actually wrote. In other words, what's actually happening in real time, just like I was saying. So you have one element, and then you don't. So that's already, if it were an orchestra, it wouldn't be all the same people playing that. So just try to figure out how am I going to play this difficult music with relatively close dynamics and hopefully phrasing, and how am I going to feel it? So I now at this stage in my life, when I was Kathy's age or even considerably older, when I was 20 years old, I knew everything and I knew how everything should go. I was really sure of myself. I was pretty sure when I was 12 too. Boy, was I wrong some of the time. But the thing is, and that's fine. So I think when I was studying at Juilliard, I tried to get the feeling of the music as I heard it when great people played it, and now I just try to just see what's there. And if you don't try too hard, you discover it starts to grow within you like a seed. For example, in many Bach pieces, there's 2 or 3 pages of no articulation and no phrasing help from the composer. It doesn't mean there's no phrasing or no meaning, but if you just sit with it and figure out where the phrases go and how they put themselves together, then it begins to grow into music. It turns into something natural in yours. So in that sense, I don't know. I guess, obviously, I was wishing on Kathy a lot of very detailed practice, which I always like to say, it takes longer at the beginning. But then your house is really much better built. All the joints are really firm and solid and know what they're doing, and that door will now open because all the hinges are even. Whereas oh, I'm not quite sure, and that's a bit of a mess there. And we all have those messes, by the way. I don't know anybody who doesn't. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but it's fun to talk about.
These questions can always be answered at length and on and on. So I appreciate your thoughtful reply to that. A few technical questions. What edition of the score were you guys using today?
Kathy, what edition were you using? Are you using?
I'm using the Harkis and Son in London. I believe I don't know how to pronounce.
That's okay. I don't know that one either. I've got. Oh, this is really. This is a time warp. I have an old Soviet edition, which I bought in Poland or Hungary or Czechoslovakia in the 70s for soft currency back when there was that issue. And it's printed, as many Soviet musicians will know, it's printed on really bad paper and it's falling apart. But I think in the case of Rachmaninoff, we've not gotten very much into urtexts yet. He lived at a time in music history when the scrupulousness of the composer was paramount, and already by the time he was writing, look at Bartók's indications with not only meticulous markings, but these 8 bars should take 17 seconds. Because in the 19th century it was much more free form. This was new music. So I suspect that every Rachmaninoff edition of this prelude I've seen looks just like that to me. It's even, I bet it starts on the left side page, right? And ends, 6 pages later on the right side. I mean, I was always amazed at Juilliard when my teacher, would pick up my edition of Beethoven and he said, oh, it's so different than the one I learned from. So I think, anyway, I don't know if there's much question of Rachmaninoff editions yet.
A question from Kate. What are some ways to avoid tension when playing this piece?
That's one of the big questions. I tried to hint on it with Kathy. In other words, piano playing is related to dance in that it's an art of applied movement. We're moving on the keys too. We're playing music. We're expressing ourselves. We're playing with feeling and dynamics, but we're also moving from here to there. So, once, as I was showing Kathy, once you've played that chord, however you play it, whether you play it down or up or however you, the best thing to do, you can't just stay stuck, because you gotta move, right? So the thing is, move right over there. In other words, each one is a release to the next. Each is just a little jump, but it's not a jump like, oh my God, I'm jumping, where am I going? You've got to actually plan that. And it's very good to do it hands separately and very slowly, as I was saying with Kathy. In other words, here it is in slow motion. And also feel yourself. Are you holding your breath? That won't solve everything, but it will help. Ha. I'm moving in between. In other words, in slow motion, I'm not doing this, which I see a lot. Using a kind of muscular tension to get myself from one place to the other. That's not wrong. It's just that it's like pumping iron. It will wear you out after a while. Here, I'll give you a bad illustration. It's not going to work. You can't do things like this piece. There is a weightlifting quality to it, but there's also a movement quality. So, a dancer has to spring. Now, of course, they all say I make it look easy. Well, there was that great remark by Vladimir Horowitz in an interview when he was asked, as an old man, how he achieved such magic in a Chopin mazurka, and he said, it's very easy. It only took me my whole life. So you have to constantly work at these things. And Liszt even said we rediscover the sources of our technique every day. Anyway, back to tension. One of the ways is to understand, one of the most important ways, is that no matter how you strike a note, and I did a brutal one earlier, got 2 there, no matter whether you do it this way, or this way, or that way, or this way, or whatever you do, they're all valid in different circumstances. The moment the key is depressed, it only takes 55 grams to hold it down, or 2 ounces. So even if you play a powerful chord, I'm still there, but if I do this, it doesn't help. The piano's not going to do anymore. Once the hammer hits the string,
no added vibrato after that.
Yeah, all your pushing isn't going to help. So it's what I call a relaxation response. You cultivate a relaxation response so you're ready for the next thing. For example, if you have the Grieg concerto with its enormous chord at the beginning, as I said to Kathy, first of all, breathe out. So you're not, oh my God, here I'm playing the Grieg concerto, I have to go all the way down without playing a wrong note. But also, for the 2/8 notes you have before the next notes, you don't have to be tense. You just have to be preparing the next. And now I'm relaxed again. Now you don't have a lot of time. You have a microsecond now to relax. But it's kind of a way of getting rid of energy. So you can really you can be very strong, but now I'm just hanging out. So no, you can't play the piano just by relaxing. Relaxing is asleep. It's a dynamic phase. I remember when I was studying with Arrau at one point, I asked him about about something like that, and he said, "My dear, it's not about relaxation. It's like the heart. The heart has to pump very forcefully, but if it doesn't unpump, you have a heart attack, or you die."
Garrick, one final question before we have to leave, and that is, do you have a favorite recording of the Rachmaninoff Prelude in G minor?
Two. I'm going to cheat.
That's
Well,
fair. That's
there
fair.
are quite a few wonderful ones, of course. I mean, many, many, many. But I'm going to go really way back to the 78 age. Number one, the composer.
Sure.
Uh,
Big hand,
just
Sergei.
Unbelievable, because, you know, as some critic once said, you could play differently than Rachmaninoff, you couldn't play better. On every level, pianistically, dynamically, tonally, control, conception, emotion. I mean, you know, it's not that there haven't been pianists as good as him in history, there have, but, you know, he's a standard. The other one is this recording, also on 78s, but I'm sure available now on YouTube, is by Josef Hoffmann, his good friend, who was his favorite pianist. And what's remarkable is how close their conceptions are, and yet there's a difference of accent. And they're both really magical. And one thing I'd like to say to Kathy and all the piano students, I think Rachmaninoff recorded this a few times, and at one point he added a couple of extra notes at the end. Composers are allowed to do that. They change their minds. You know, just because it winds up in print doesn't mean that's the only thing they ever thought of. And I remember when I was young as a student, I was outraged when I heard that. How can he do that? Oh, well, he wrote it.
Not sacrosanct.
Yeah. So he was a pretty strict guy. He didn't believe in mucking around with his own pieces or anybody else's. I mean, what he did interpretively was very advanced, but you know, he was very scrupulous.
I want to thank Garrick. I want to thank Kathy. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you so much. Until we meet again online or in real life, on behalf of Steinway artist Garrick Ohlsson, on behalf of Kathy Chen and Steinway and Sons, I'm Ben Finan, and I remain musically yours. Thank you all so much.